almost seem too incredible to be real, but they were real. And some of those figures that you saw were over 300 feet high. Now, incredibly, these drones, and I got a loaner here from Intel, weigh less than a pound, but put 1,000 of them or more in the air at the same time, and they create something that's now being called digital fireworks.
The drone show broadcast during the opening ceremony didn't just dazzle, it smashed a world record. 1,218 drones set aloft by Intel, creating the largest ever swarm of synchronized drones. The largest number of drones previous to that, just over 500. The drones creating animated three-dimensional figures. That snowboarder coasting through the sky over imaginary bumps. A dove fluttering in the stars, and of course, the Olympic rings.
So what's that in your hand?
So this is the Intel Shooting Star drone, and this is a drone that flew at the opening ceremony. 1,200 of these flew to create the snowboarder and the Olympic rings. This weighs 330 grams. It's about the weight of a volleyball, right? And the reason why we wanted to do that is for safety in mind. We wanted to make it plastic and foam. We wanted to make it lightweight.
A smaller number of drones will fly here every night during the medal ceremonies.
This is something that's completely different from what you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
It's a new form of storytelling, right? It's something where it's sort of like digital fireworks.
The drones rely on sophisticated software that controls the swarms. It's beautiful, but it's not easy.
There have been a lot of challenges. You can never predict weather.
The drones can only fly in certain areas under certain conditions. What the Olympic Committee has described as logistical issues caused the cancellation of the live drone show during last night's opening ceremonies. Intel's drones have made a number of cameos lately, including last year's Super Bowl halftime show, painting that giant American flag behind Lady Gaga, and for the premiere of the movie Wonder Woman.
The possibilities are endless. You literally have a point of light, multiple points of light that you can control in the sky, and it's something that can create such a beautiful experience. That's what we want to create across the world.
Now, what's incredible is that less than 2 pilots can operate those 1,000+ drones.
So yeah, so that's just, I thought it would be a timely example of what drone technology can do. But now we can get it to experts. You guys want to introduce yourself quickly and tell you 2 minutes or so about yourselves, and then just get into the business. Okay. So Joel, you want to start?
Well, so my name is Stewart. I am the CTO of HydraFPV, which is a startup in town that is focused on drone racing entertainment. It is my night job. So by day I do software engineering, contract work, and different things. Been doing hardware and software for over a decade now, and Hydra is kind of my fusion of my hobby and playtime with my day job. So it's kind of fun. Jim?
My name is Jim Macius. I'm a senior test engineer with Honeywell Aerospace. My main duty, I'm a UAV test pilot, so I'm responsible for flying test aircraft with experimental payloads, and then I help explore growing new products and the business verticals with the division that I'm with. So, and similar to what Joel just said, I mean, I got into this as a hobby, and it kind of turned. I was lucky enough to turn my passion into a brand new career that I never thought I'd have a chance at again in my life. And anyways, so I can just go on and on and on about where I came from, where I am, and where I think this stuff is going. Yeah. So, anyways, and then I started flying with Joel a year ago with these whoops, and that's how we know each other. So.
Yeah, Jim showed up to one of our first makeshift race at my office, so it was great. So I'll give you a quick intro to what Hydra is. If you want these slides, there's tons of links littered throughout the slides. So if you go to hydrafpv.com/presentations, you'll find a link to this deck, and then you can follow all the links to your heart's content, and it's tons of resources for you as you get going. So, and then of course the usual Facebook.com HydraFPV has put on what we call the Hydra Cup, which is actually an indoor racing series. We are basically holding tiny whoops, which if you flow this guy, some people just walked in. So these tiny little drones, we've been taking them to breweries around town, and we actually solicited about 12 pilots. And we run about 5 different heats, and we actually hold a race in the back areas of the breweries, through the tanks, the different areas where they're putting stuff together, all the way out and around people in the brewery. And our first one was at Startup Weekend back in September. We partnered with AirViews, and they did a very awesome live stream mixed in with what we did with the racing technology we were providing. It was such a hit that we showed up again the next month at Thanksgiving at Bauhaus Brewery for the second one, and Chris Spangler, who you'll see a picture of in a bit, he won that round, that heat. And then a month later, we were at the Norseman Distillery, just a little bit from here. Paul Flint came out of nowhere and took first at that one. And then a couple of weeks ago, over Super Bowl week, we were down at Lakes and Legends Brewing, and Chris Spangler won that one again. We have another one coming up, which you'll hear about soon, and I hope to see everyone there. So the complete standings, you can actually see all the pilots that are flying currently in the cup. So here's a quick little, if it'll play, let's see if it plays. This is a little highlight reel to kind of give you a sense of the crowd and experience that we had.
You lift my heart up when the rest of me is down. You enchant me even when you're not around. If there are boundaries, I will try to knock them down. I'm latching on them, now I know what I have found.
See the action here.
That was a little long clipping there. Let's run it down. So, I don't know if everyone here is familiar with what actually goes into a racing drone, so I'm going to give you the diagram of a drone in one slide in about 30 seconds. Stay with me. You have a transmitter, which is going to take your input, left, right, up, down, pitch, yaw, roll. It's going to send a signal over here to your transmitter receiving antenna, it's this little stick here, and it's going to send that input all the way down to a flight controller board. That board is powered by a power distribution board, which is plugged into your battery. That distribution board also powers your camera, your ESCs, or electronic speed controllers, which power your motors and various props. Also attached to the camera is your video transmitter, which is usually hiding down here and has a video antenna, which then sends a signal over to your headset where you have a video receiver, some video receiver antennas, as well as some LCDs so you can see what you're piloting. All of that happens very fast. That is the makeup of a drone. Traditionally, when we've been doing drone racing for the last like 2 or 3 years ago, we would have to basically buy all these parts individually. We'd have to solder all the parts together, and you end up with kind of a beast, little monster dude that looks like this. This is a 150 size. We measure drones by prop to prop, so the diagonals, so it's 150 millimeters between the two. This is what we call kind of a micro quad or mini quad. It's in the smaller scale. So the other ones you'll see are like 250, a bit bigger like this. This is similar to what you'll see flying around outside. These are pretty aggressive and pretty dangerous, but a lot of fun. These are older styles, so these are like 3 years old. You'll see newer ones in a second here. Actually, I have some pictures of that. So this is actually, if you watch DRL on ESPN, this is their V3 drone. So it's a little bit, it's pretty nice, pretty not a lot of wires going on. Has a ton of LEDs to light up so people can see where it is on the course and which color, everything else. This is by Immersion RC. This is what they call the Mojo 230. This is a really popular drone in racing right now. And this one is probably going to take over the whole industry next year. I forget, this is the Catalyst America. So, but it has a really small arm, so it has very little wind resistance, and the guys can do like 60, 70 miles an hour with that thing. So they're pretty, that one's pretty awesome. So at Hydra, since our goal is not just to make drones or fly drones, but what we're about is actually bringing that entertainment into your view, into something that you can participate with. It's very difficult to experience drone racing right now. There's not a lot of places to see it, not a lot of places to go find it. And once you get to a field where maybe they are racing, it's kind of a cluster. It's just chaos. You really don't know what's happening. So one of the things that Hydra is trying to solve is all of that. We want to make it so that everything can be approachable by you, the consumer, the viewer, and you can engage with it. But our biggest problem is video latency. So this is a quick diagram of the latency and all the components that go into streaming and when we do one of these races. One of my co-founders asked me to put this diagram together because he was confused about why we were having such a delay to get all the way out to Facebook. And so I was like, okay, well, from the drone camera to its transmitter, it's probably a couple milliseconds. From that transmitter, sent over the air to the receiver in your goggles, it's maybe 0. It's pretty there. But then once you get to the headset, it's 10 milliseconds. At the same time, we're going to digital encoder to turn it into H.264. We also have a stream encoder where we're sending out 2 signals, an RTMP and an RTSP. RTSP is going here. And I just went on, and he's like, oh, I get it now. It's complicated. It's like, yeah, it's complicated. So the reason that this isn't being done and it's not, approachable and consumable for you right now is because it's hard. There's so many pieces that go into making all of this work that it's just kind of complicated. So this is actually an accurate diagram of our last race at Lakes and Legends of what went into actually achieving everything there. So
why are you decoding and encoding?
So we actually have, that's not it. We have about 16 cameras on the course. And so one computer decoding 16 analog streams is pretty impossible. And 16 H.264 streams is impossible. So I have a lot of individual encoders and decoders, and then I try and find ways to bring them together in specific spots. So if you were here a second ago, you saw like the 4UP software. So that actually focuses on just for the 4 pilot cameras. But we have course cameras, we have commentator cameras, we have vectors camera, we have pilot selfie cameras. Like, it adds up, and so we try and find a way to funnel specific video feeds to specific computers and then bring them all together eventually at the end to create a production. So it's a lot of, there's a lot of encoding and decoding in different formats. Also, another question, like I mentioned 2 signals, RTMP, or real-time media protocol, and real-time streaming protocol, have different latencies and different ways that they're encoded and sent over the air and require different buffering amounts on each computer on both sides. So RTMP is going to naturally add about 2 seconds. And so for somebody who's at the brewery watching the video feed, 2 seconds of delay of watching the guy drive by, and then you see it 2 seconds into the screen is a little off-putting. So RTSP is only about a half-second delay. So we bring that in specifically, but that doesn't do well for broadcasting out to everyone else. So there's a ton of nuance around what we do. In those environments, we also have some frequency problems. The video that is transmitted over the air from the drone to your goggles is operating at 5.8 gigahertz. We have a spectrum of about 300 megahertz that we play with, so 5600 to about 5950. Sometimes we go a little higher, but not much. That's just brand new. And they take about 40 megahertz of bandwidth. So that means if I'm focused on, let's say, 5685, which is what that guy is on, I actually need about the frequencies 5665 to 5715. That's kind of where my video sits. And so if you end up with video signals that kind of overlap, you get a lot of like buzz and analog frequencies. Really kind of interesting. So those cameras are actually analog. They broadcast NTSC or PAL video, so think back 15 years over the air before we had digital. The reason is because our encoders and decoders are that much faster. As soon as we start to go into H.264 or digital, we start adding a ton of delay, and it's not good for pilots for racing when they need to have reflexes like a cat. So we have those operating in that frequency, which immediately kicks out kind of the higher band of our 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. This is the frequency range that this Wi-Fi operates at, from 5635 to 5835. If you plug that in, that takes down probably all the Wi-Fi in here, which actually might be why it went down earlier. Justin. So what we end up doing for Hydra is we have the 5 gigahertz operating at the lower end, which is the 5170 to 2250, and it's out of these frequency ranges, so they can coexist just fine. 2.4 we turn off. for other reasons, because that radio controller, where you send the inputs over to the drone, operate in the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. And different protocols behave differently in that range. We have 3 different brands, prevalent brands right now, Free Sky, Spectrum, and Fly Sky. And they have different protocols. ACTST kind of does this whole shotgun bouncing around the spectrum kind of thing, and it's not really whatever. There's no frequency hopping going on. DSMX does some frequency hopping, but beside the point. Point is, we turn off 2.4, we only get that for Wi-Fi. This is all our video, and this is all of our radio control. So we have a lot of frequency problems. So when we go into a brewery, you have to ask, what's your Wi-Fi on? And they say, oh, we have a 2.4 and 1 5 gigahertz. We're like, okay, shut it down. And they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, you gotta shut it down, otherwise the pilots don't get to see what they're needing to see, and the transmitters may or may not work. So it's kind of an interesting game we play with the breweries. So when we show up at one of these breweries, we have a pretty large technical footprint. As you can see, we have cameras, FPV cameras. Right now we fly 4 up at a time. When we go outdoors, we'll probably do 8 up. So that'll be 8 cameras just for the first-person views on the drones themselves. Commentator cameras can be 1 or more. Typically we have 2, 1 roaming and 1 calling all the shots for the race. We have 4+ course cameras. Right now we're doing about 6 usually. And then selfie cameras is something we're slowly adding. I think this next race we're going to have selfie cams for everyone, but we'll see.
Explain a selfie camera.
What?
Explain it a little bit.
Yeah, so as a pilot, I'm sitting there and I have my goggles on and I'm controlling my quad and you know, I'm having a very expressive moment as I'm crashing into everything. And so it's fun to have that selfie camera there, getting that audio and visual view of that pilot and his reaction as he's crashing his quad into various things. So it's kind of a fun thing, and then they can do their post-commentary themselves and push that up. So all of the streams that we push, all of the video feeds that we push into the system are all recorded. So I have the complete history of every single camera, whether or not we selected it for the primary feed at the end. So I have gigabytes of video already that are really fun to watch. Hilarious. I've been doing all the custom software, so race coordination, we have mobile apps which are slowly coming online, but that coordinates all of the heats, all of the pilot frequencies, when they're on deck, when they're up to fly, the leaderboards, all that stuff. In addition to that, there's one thing we tried at Norseman. It worked for one person because Apple's not in the App Store, but we actually have it so you can actually look at any video feed on your device, on your iPhone or Android phone. You can watch any feed. You can even put it on a Google VR cardboard and experience what the pilots are experiencing while you're sitting there having a beer. So it's pretty fun. The desktop software, which you saw a glimpse of earlier and you'll see some more of, that does the 4-up and lets the director switch and choose what he wants to show and talk about different things. And that integrates pretty much all of the cameras and all the systems together. So one of the things that we're really interested in exploring is all the metadata around a race, though. So what's a race without knowing who's in first and who's in second? And so we have this little guy. This actually tracks the RSSI strength, the RSSI signal of your quad as you fly by it. So we can tell effectively who just passed this puck. And so as we get more and more of these and integrated into the system, we'll have 20 of these later around the map, and we'll be able to tell effectively who's in first, who's in second, who's in third, and within about every 5 seconds, we'll have a snapshot of that. That's all connected over USB and Ethernet back to the main director piece of software. It's also a streaming infrastructure, and also we have to tie into the venue's infrastructure. So if they have a PA system, a projector, Apple TV, etc. So it's a very large footprint. It takes us about 3 hours to set up when we get there. Right now, I think we're trying to get it down, but it's a lot. But our vision is pretty simple. Not actually simple at all. We want drone races everywhere. We want it to be approachable, and we want it to be consumable for everyone. So that means we have to solve all those engagement problems that we typically find in these types of verticals that are emerging. So who's winning? Who's almost winning? What do I watch? What's important? What WTF is going on? Who do I cheer for? Why should I come back? Who are my local hometown competitors, and where do I find drone races to attend? So if we can achieve answering all of those things, I think we'll have arrived. So check back in a year. So hopefully we'll get there. These are our hometown heroes. So here's Spangler, Flexi FPV. He just placed 4th nationally for DRL tryouts. There was was held in New York City last week or a week and a half ago. I have a clip of him here in a second racing. They actually flew in a simulator, which I'll talk about. And these two, Simon and Megan, also known as Marty Flies and Drone Doll. She's probably one of maybe like 4 females that are racing and flying right now in the States. Maybe there's more, but I haven't ever heard of them. So, but she's fantastic. She's a lot of fun. And Simon actually started working for me yesterday. So he's pretty great too. So I'm biased towards them, but they put on a great little YouTube video called Till Drones Do Us Part, and I actually want to show that to you because my wife loves it. I think it's pretty hilarious. They do say the S word. Is that okay? See? Yeah. Okay. All right. They swear it a couple times. He's engaged, apparently.
I'm flying high, but I got a feeling I'm falling for nobody else but you.
Oh my god, I'm getting dizzy. Oh god.
That was really barely. Oh wow! Now,
Oh god, I'm really
now
dizzy.
I'm really dizzy.
Do you think you could be a female SUV pilot?
Oh yeah, for sure, totally. I don't know if my arms would survive the free shit I would get though.
Don't get any free shit. I don't think girls have things here. We put up with a lot of shit in some of the Facebook groups. I don't think the girls and guys are like all that much different, except for that the girls are obviously way prettier.
They are way pretty. I think there is some differences between girls and guys when they fly FPV. Girls versus guys, a battle as old as time.
Alright guys, I'm gonna go for a nice, chill flight. I gotta change my prep.
Mama seems to be flexing, ass so fat it be coming out of her pants and it be landing out of my hands. We ain't down with no stressing, roll it up and then blast it, roll it up and then pass it.
Okay. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, my point in showing you that is actually not what you might think. The reason is because we race and we fly and we do all these things, but there is more opportunity to make money in drones than just having fun. Like we have the ability to make money. We follow personalities. People have a presence. Like they make money off of their YouTube ads. They have people who follow them on Twitch, on Twitter, and they actually make money from advertising and people who subscribe to their stuff. So there is this kind of element of what is emerging, like electronic gaming that's coming onto Twitch, and people are actually monetizing their ability to. Drone racing and drone freestyle is actually headed that way as well. To give you an idea of other money-making opportunities, this is actually a video that they help shoot for Kia. There's White and Rice is an agency in town, and they are the local agency for the local Kia. And this is actually in a New York Film Festival Awards, I think, next week, I think. So it's a
Agent H, we have reports you're being tracked, and they seem to be well equipped. You should have no problem dealing with this little hiccup.
Target acquired. Breach spotted.
So all the footage here is Simon and Megan flying. All the drone footage.
Located. In pursuit.
That's downtown Minneapolis.
I think you lost it, Agent H.
So they have a long career ahead of them as drone pilots for sure. So the other guy, our other hometown hero here is Chris Spangler. He's probably top 3 pilots in the state. And he was on DRL a week and a half ago. That was actually on ESPN and live streamed online. They had millions of people watching it at the same time. The premise of it was DRL is actually on ESPN. I think it starts, or maybe started last week, I think. And they do actual drone racing at big venues, usually like football stadiums, different things, and it's very aggressive, very awesome. They put a lot of money into the production. So what they did this year for tryouts, though, is they have their core group of about 10 pilots. They wanted to bring in some more, and so they made some software simulator, and you can plug it in, plug your controller into your computer, and compete. And the top 40 times actually all got invited out to New York to compete for the final spot in the league at the end of the year. So Chris was top 8 or so when they got invited, and he ended up placing 4th. So this is a really quick snapshot of him in New York flying at the thing. So they're actually flying in a simulator, so that's why it doesn't look.
They're taking them as tight as they possibly.
That's
and it's incredible how fast they're able to do this. I mean, they are almost moving through these corridors faster than I can visually watch them. Right? It's incredible.
Heat 6 is coming underway. What do you think is going through the mind of UFO right now?
I think he's thinking about his line. I think he's visualizing what his turns are. He's visualizing what he needs to do. He's thinking about his moves. He's probably thinking about the areas he feels the most uncomfortable with and what he can do to change that.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All Robos needs this one.
Into the hallway. It's RoboGenesis in a comfortable spot. First place, that is. UFO and Pew Pew, you're 2 and 3. Pew Pew quickly dropping RoboGenesis through the Pentagon Gate up to the Sky Gate. A hard right turn. Nicely done. Almost completely inverted on the way down with a lot of throttle. That's what's going to give him that momentum to push ahead of the pack with clean air and no one around him. RoboGenesis is not trying to let these guys catch up to him whatsoever. Fluxy FPV, FDR, Dan second and third around the helix. Now through this tight hallway. Around the goalpost. This is RoboGenesis' view of the final straight. He'll bring it in with another win. First place of 37.04. Fluxy and FBR Dan, you're 2 and 3.
He clinched.
He clinched. I think he's our.
So I think he ended up getting RoboGenesis was the guy who won there, and he ended up getting like 75 grand or something for winning. Plus he will be on the tour with DRL next year and everything. So it's pretty awesome. So how do we get involved? That's my goal here, is to help everyone in this room get involved at the end of the day. So if you're at all interested in flying or already a pilot, please come fly. We have a base. When it comes to like your goggles, you need to fly. That's also critical for FPV. I would not recommend this. This is pretty terrible. So the ones you saw everyone else flying with are those white ones. That's the Fat Shark Dominator V3. That's usually the point. It's a little pricey. That's like $200, $225, I think. And HD V3 is like $400. They're really pricey, but it's worth it. So that's why I want you to play, have some fun before you really commit. If you want, you can also go with some super cheap ones. Super cheap guy like this, it's a box goggle, a little more forgiving for glasses kind of thing. You can find these like 50 bucks. Maybe a good entry. They're a good entry unit before you make the leap. And then the tiny one. So the 65 and 65S, that just, don't worry about the numbers. So again, 90 bucks from a guy here local. So we encourage everyone to buy local. Oh, there's a code. If you type in not HHH, but HydraFPV5, you'll get 5% off at Quad Style RC. Josh Willis is a fantastic guy. He's a cool dude. So buy local, support him. He's there on site at all of our cups, all of our races to, you know, replace the pilot's broken gear as soon as it happens. He's also been very gracious in giving away some FPV starter kits. So you can buy the whole bundle for like $350, I think. Use the 5% off and it drops it down to like $315. I don't know if you'll find a better deal. That includes the transmitter, whoop, some batteries, charger, and the whole bit. All in a box. It's pretty great. Again, slides are there. That's it. Questions? I did that fast. Yeah, so this is the software that we use for doing the 4-up and everything, so I can switch between the views, whatever the pilot is. Anyway. Send it?
Yeah, it should be. Go to YouTube, I need to.
Yeah, I got it.
Honeywell Aerospace is pleased to announce the launch of our commercial UAV inspection service. The service was designed to offer safer, more reliable inspection services to the oil and gas, utility, and infrastructure markets.
Typically what you would do is have people at risk to go do inspection of their power lines or power grid or whatever it happens to be. What the UAV can do is come in and do that a lot safer, and it's certainly a lot more efficient using a UAV application to do that.
UAV inspections improve safety by keeping boots on the ground, leverage efficiency by allowing for tailored and standardized inspections time after time, and improve the reliability of data collection and grid management over time. The unique size, strength, and market position of Honeywell allows us to leverage our expertise in aerospace and the global energy markets to develop a drone-based solution that meets the dynamic needs of industrial market verticals.
I got into this with Mav Meetup about 3 years ago, and I didn't know anything about, how to do this legally and safe and things like that. So that's where I reached out to Mav Meetup and started networking with other professionals to learn how to do this safely and comply with local laws. So I started off with 3D mapping and just interested in what you could do with that and turning that into all sorts of stuff, point clouds, 3D models, volume, measuring piles, all sorts of stuff. So, and after working with local professionals for a few years, I guess I stumbled upon this opportunity just about 8 months ago off of Facebook to become like I said, a test engineer with Honeywell, and it's been kind of a dream job for me, at least, because my background, it's in IT. I did that for practically the last 20 years, and I'm an avid photographer, and I love aviation. So all of this kind of, this technology and where we're at, it encompasses all of that. And anyway, so coming back to where we're at, so the journey that I kind of laid out in front of you and where I'm at now, it's been a really unique perspective on the world of this, drone technology as it is and where it's going. And I'm not really a business guy or big picture guy, but I'm sure everybody here has probably seen, a lot of numbers that, for example, like in the next 5 years, there's going to be billions of dollars poured into, commercial, inspection and data gathering verticals, business verticals. And there are a lot of companies out there trying to grab, whatever percentage of that market that they can get, whether it's in, creating the products, the drones, the individual devices, to the software that controls, the drones, to the software that processes the data. I guess a term that gets thrown around quite a bit is, data it's the new oil. So it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a new frontier, but everybody's rushing out there to try to collect data, figure out what to do with it, and to capitalize on that. And the end result is to help people and clients try to do whatever they're doing more efficiently. So, companies like Honeywell, Intel, Amazon, all these big companies, they're all into collecting data and trying to do something with it. So, that right now, the last couple of years have been kind of a segue to at this point, and now it's like, it's all about data and collecting that data, what you can do with it, and then, and that's, from Mav Meetup and other resources, I've kind of learned on my own that that's a service gap. You can go get these drones and you can collect this data, and then you have customers who could do something with that data, and it's like, well, how do you turn that data into something that's totally useful and that means something to them, and so that they can go apply that data to whatever it is, whether it's agriculture, construction sites, anything. So anyway, so that's kind of a word vomit. Thoughts in my head.
Yeah, so if you're interested in getting into that market as opposed to racing, like for commercial photography or for mapping, DJI does the vast majority of your photography drones. So this is the Spark. This is their cheapest one. It's about $400 or $500 depending upon what kit you get with it. But it is ridiculously stable. Plug it in your smartphone, and I'll launch it here in a second. You can see just how stable it is. But this is a 1080p camera. The next level up will give you a 4K at 60 frames per second. And you can go out and become a drone pilot pretty quickly. Get your commercial license, which is a little bit of studying, not too hard at all. And then there's a couple websites. One that's really starting, I'm hoping that takes off. I think it's called Airbase. You can actually go on and log on as a pilot, and then any commercial entity that would want drone footage of their car dealership or of their office building or something, they can just go on and request a flyover or video, and they can say, I want these shots, different things, and so you'll have brand agencies come through and will solicit a pilot off of that website to go fly it. Then they get paid out a couple $100 for their work, and it's fantastic. It's kind of the Uber of drone pilots and drone photography. So I'll launch this guy here, as you can just see. Don't worry, no hands will come off. Famous last words. So this guy is designed for stability, so I can go back and forth, but it has a 2-axis gimbal on there, and so what I see on my screen here is pretty accurate. It's going to beep if I walk in front of it. I'm trying to hear it, but you can do some pretty great shots with that. You can control the sensors, all that good stuff. So this is a really fun drone. If you're looking to get into photography, start here. This guy is hard to beat. It's so much fun. So, what is it? It's a DJI Spark.
Can I ask you a question? Obviously Honeywell's a big aerospace player, but it's Honeywell working with any standards group like SDM to determine, for example, your own service, under what conditions would you fly as far as weather, wind, rain, hail, whatever, because, at some point, all the various types of drones and UASs, they have some kind of weather rating, because you're not going to be able to, obviously, the smaller one go out in heavy winds, and maybe bigger one could. Is that anything Honeywell's looking at?
I'm just trying to, I don't know, I don't want to overspeak for who I represent, and I would have to say that we're involved in a lot of aspects of what you just talked about, and I can't be more specific, but I mean our goal is we want to help move those regulations along and be a part of that atmosphere, and also comply with with safety and regulations as much as we can, and but I really can't comment on that stuff. So
what is the legal situation? I mean, what do you have to do to be able to fly your drone?
So you just need to obtain a Part 107 license. That's an FAA remote pilot license, which with that education and the test, I mean,
You. Different.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So Part 107 is for if you want to generate income, as a business, and fly drones, inspections, marketing and advertising, whatever, anything that generates money with a drone service, that's commercial, and you need to have your Part 107 license.
Yeah.
So, and then if you need help, with that, you can talk to me afterwards, and I have some information on that.
Yeah. From a hobbyist perspective, it's pretty lightweight. If it's under a certain grams, is it 250 grams? So if your drone is under 250 grams, all up with the battery, everything, you don't need to do anything. You can go out and fly it. With the caveat, you are not supposed to technically fly within 5 miles of an airport. So there are some different restrictions. You can just download an app. There's like Air Radar and different things that will show you where all the airports are, where all the schools are and everything, and then show you where you're allowed to fly. So here in the Twin Cities, we only have a handful of spots that are like free and clear, and so you'll find MAP meet up at one of those spots every other week, basically. And so if you want to fly in those areas, then you need to start talking about another ham radio test. I forget which one it is, but also if it's over 250 grams, you need to register with the FAA, right? Yeah, FAA, and that's a $5 fee, and there's no test. It's just give us your information, and then you're supposed to put like your license number on the drone in case you fly it off into some lake or something, and they can find it and return it to you.
Yep.
Just trying to get it up and running here, but something's not wired up right here. Yeah, it doesn't like that. What's going on there, buddy? This might crash on us. Have you seen these guys? This revolution?
Yeah, it seems like it. I think it's going to be a big thing. I think what they're doing is take
all your own drop them.
I've been in technology.
I would like to.
No, yeah, they've been investing heavily.
But I mean, lately I actually help people pass their 107